Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday, an hour later than normal. Had some doctor appointment, had to go to and get Jack to school, so we are starting an hour later than normal. So, big things though. College football playoff rankings are out. Not really anything crazy. I know there's a lot of discussion around Notre Dame, Miami. Of course, there's the alternate discussion around Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, all of those programs kind of battling in that range with the movement. Thanks to that Oklahoma win on the road over Alabama. We'll get to reaction and what it means for the ACC. We'll also update our latest power rankings. We'll talk a little bit of hoops. I got a chance to watch Duke, Kansas last night. And the Blue Devils look really, really strong right now. So getting that top 25 win early in the season. But we are presented by our friends at OPW Solutions. We appreciate them helping out our entire All Access AM family, whether you're in North Texas, whether you're in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and other locations. They deliver best-in-class commercial services across all facets of your business. You can go to them for pressure washing. You can go to them for fence maintenance. You can go to them for all sorts of landscaping improvements and maintenance that you need for your business, even painting the parking spaces in your parking lot. OPW Solutions is there for you, as well as we get into the colder months, snow and ice control, especially you guys up in Oklahoma, Arkansas. I know North Texas will probably get its yearly freeze, and everything will all get crazy around here dealing with that. But OPW Solutions is there for you, and they're there for us at All Access AM, supporting us on this journey as we continue to grow. We have another new sponsor to announce later in the show, so really excited about that, and have a cool new partnership as well going out on Thursday's show, which will be back in the 7 to 8 a.m. time frame. So make sure you plan ahead for that as we'll kind of wrap up the week and get going with our picks, previews, all of those things. So thanks for joining us today. Appreciate Freddie for chiming in on the chat. Shout out Freddie, and we appreciate you guys who are interacting with us in the chat. This is a show for ACC football, basketball fans. We're going to take it wherever the viewers want it to, really. You know, we'll get to in a couple weeks as well. Signing day, I want to do some things around that, kind of have some experts on to talk about the classes around the ACC and what that means. So lots of different things we're doing. And we broke out the reaction show for James Franklin getting hired at Virginia Tech. And James Franklin is going to get introduced, I believe, Wednesday at Virginia Tech. His press conference is going to be Can't Miss TV. For those of you, we'll talk about that when we get to the Thursday show. And he'll be able to be introduced Wednesday. I'm trying to get the time for you guys, but they did say Wednesday, November 19th. So be sure to be locked in on that later today. I don't think they're kicking off the morning with it, but huge news there. We reacted to it, and those reaction videos are something we want to do. We want to do them live. We want to do them as soon as we can, kind of the initial reaction for James Franklin and some of these other coaches as they either get fired or hired. So make sure you do me a favor. Look down on your YouTube channel. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, just click the button. It says subscribe on your phone, on your computer, wherever. It helps us out a lot as we grow the channel. Hope to do some cool partnerships, really coast to coast with the ACC family. So we appreciate all of you guys who have subscribed. James Franklin just now arriving, actually, so I'm glad I searched this, but he will be introduced at a 10 a.m. press conference. So I'd love to maybe hang out with you guys for a couple minutes, but we'll just react to this. But there he is getting off the plane in Blacksburg to get introduced at a 10 a.m. Wednesday press conference. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that. One day, All Access AM will be coast to coast and have people there to go live. So we continue to track James Franklin and how the staff he builds out is going to get right to work. So Appreciate you guys for listening and watching with us. But let's get to the college football playoff rankings that are out. This is a kind of a yearly thing and a weekly thing now where the committee is going to back itself into having to ultimately defend some rankings that are, let's just say, I just think there's going to be a debate on a couple of teams that are just not good enough to kind of be in there. And I think you're going to see it where the college football playoff committee is going to have to answer for some of these things that they back themselves into the corner with regards to teams that they want to see in the playoff no matter what. And it doesn't matter what you or I think. It doesn't matter what I think committee should or shouldn't do. At the end of the day, if they want Notre Dame in that field, they're going to have them in that field. And they're going to create enough separation between Notre Dame and Miami where they're not going to have to address the actual reasoning behind that. So for those who missed it, Hunter Yurachek has taken over for Mack Rhodes, who's on a leave of absence from Baylor for personal reasons. Hunter Yurachek's the Arkansas AD. So there is that. And I think when I look at his role now, I thought, okay, maybe there would be this kind of new blood. Maybe there would be this opportunity to see some change with regards to how the college football playoff committee talks about rankings and how they, show, this world and how they, talk about these rankings. But at the end of the day, that did not happen. And Hunter Yurachek, so I'm kind of playing with some things on this, but there we go. Hunter Yurachek talked about the Miami Notre Dame debate. And here is what he said. He was asked directly about two things. How much do common opponents potentially play into talking about comparing teams? Just looking at Miami and Notre Dame's schedule, they have 4 common opponents with 3 of those games being in the next 2 weeks as well. Next question, basically what the committee's thought process was when considering Utah a spot above Miami. I think Utah being a spot above Miami is more egregious than the Miami Notre Dame debate. That's my opinion. I think Utah and Kyle Whittingham is getting more of a benefit of the doubt over years of him being a successful coach and having Utah doing more with less out there, in my opinion. Their 2 losses on the year are to Texas Tech and to BYU. But, they have beaten a Cincinnati team that's hung around in the top 25 at times. They've beaten Arizona State that has hung around in the top 25 and is a top 25 team right now. And other than that, though, like nothing really stands out about their wins. They don't have one really good signature win. And for them to be above Miami, who's beaten Notre Dame, who's beaten the teams that they've beaten, and has just kind of fallen on bad luck in conference in a sense, similar to Utah, you could say, having to play Texas Tech and BYU, but they got the brakes beat off them by Texas Tech. Like there's no way, no world that you would think that Utah is a college football playoff team having lost out big to Texas Tech and having lost to BYU. And Miami, though, has the roster, has the pieces of a team that can make the college football playoff and maybe find their groove and get hot. So Miami comes in at number 13, and they're behind Utah to, really just, I have no idea why they're behind Utah. But back to Hunter Yurachek, he said this: common opponents are one of the data points we use in comparing teams. So that will be something that we will obviously, when comparing teams, whether it's Notre Dame or Miami, whatever two teams you're comparing, common opponents is one of the criteria we use. In regards to Utah being ahead of Miami, Utah, they've lost 2 games this season, one to number 5 Texas Tech, the other to number 11 BYU. Comparatively, Miami's lost 2 games, one at home to unranked Louisville, one on the road against an unranked SMU. So when you talk about the two teams that are 8-2 and you don't really have a common opponent or a head-to-head matchup, you look at the losses Utah has versus the losses Miami has. So we're now talking about losses versus wins, which is cool. Utah right now, they're second in the country in their margin of victory in each of their games. Look at their schedule. They have played really good football moving forward. Obviously, there's a 12 versus 13, that one spot apart, but I think that the differentiator is the losses that Utah has versus the losses that Miami has. Jackson makes a great point here. And this is the problem with, and I've heard a number of coaches bring this up. The college football playoff ranking gives them the rankings to then talk about and tout and make the points for their teams. Like if you're asking me, there's got to be, look, the top 25 is great, but maybe it should just be a top 20, because some of these wins that you're able to tout, to Jackson's point here, Illinois, Missouri, a team like being in there, Arizona State, like nobody thinks really Arizona State is that great of a team right now. But to Jackson's point in our chat, Illinois, USC, Tennessee, Missouri, all being pumped up to fit the narrative of ranked wins. Like Oklahoma goes on and plays Missouri this weekend, for example, and they're going to beat Missouri. And the question would be then, does Missouri fall out of the top 25 for losing to a top 10 Oklahoma team? They should. That's not a good enough football team to be at number 22, regardless of your schedule. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't understand it on some of these things. That would be a 4-loss team that could be hanging around in the top 25 and would then help fit the narrative for some schools with regards to, their top wins, their ranked wins. And on the flip side of that, you look at some of the AP poll and you look at some of the coaches poll of college football, and the receiving votes angle of that is really interesting, because if you look at the receiving votes, well, one, SMU sitting there as the number 2 team in the coaches poll. So by that margin, the coaches recognize, hey, SMU's a good team. They're playing well right now. They had a horrible start to the season in terms of non-conference play as a whole, but they're getting their act together. The coaches are recognizing that. If SMU goes and beats Louisville, which is receiving votes, which could, and with the way Louisville's played, knock them out completely of receiving votes, SMU would have beaten a roster that is a good roster. They're struggling. They lost their star player. Their quarterback can't carry them by himself, even with Kewan Brown playing well. And so then you'd say, okay, does SMU get enough credit now that they're in the top 25 in the coaches poll? Like if SMU jumps Tulane next week in the coaches poll, will the committee do that as well and put them into the top 25 over an Arizona State, who, by the way, is a few spots behind in the coaches poll behind SMU? They're only receiving 16 votes. So all of this, to Jackson's point, is manufactured. It helps the committee really kind of pump up their narratives. And the Miami narrative that I have the biggest problem with right now is you look at what is going on with Miami's conversation around Notre Dame and how Miami is viewed as this team that can't be talked about in the same breath as Notre Dame because they're a few spots away from them. They're 4, 5, however you want to put it. Notre Dame's 9, Miami's 13. There are 3 teams in between them. Miami has a point to make here. Their losses are not as good as Notre Dame's. There's no doubt about that. I would not be opposed to a Notre Dame at number 9, Miami at number 10. Wouldn't be opposed. Could see that argument. But when you have this massive separation where the committee says, well, we can't really talk about them because they're so far away. That's silly. That's silly. Like, absolutely give me Miami over Utah on a neutral field for sure. And I would have to believe, and Josh Pate does this all the time, shout out to him, dial up FanDuel, ask FanDuel what Miami, Utah would be on a neutral field. I would bet you so much money on FanDuel that Miami is ahead of Utah in that regards and would be a favorite. So it's a difficult thing because it's not about who would be favored in terms of determining these rankings, but Miami is really just kind of getting screwed over here. And I am good with the committee as far as how they view Virginia. I think Virginia beating a very average Duke team shouldn't necessarily do anything for them. That's a team they should beat at full strength. Virginia has not been very impressive at all, but Georgia Tech now sitting at 16 in the college football playoff rankings. By the way, not all rankings are bad. Georgia Tech ahead of Texas. That could have been a super easy one for the committee to say, well, it's Texas. Let's just keep them ahead of Georgia Tech because, you know, we like Texas or whatever. But clearly, they're giving a little bit of credit here to Georgia Tech, even though they're coming off of a game that is horrible. And they I don't want to say they had no right to win that game, but they really needed some things to go their way for BC to kind of botch that in the fourth quarter. And they took advantage of it. So credit to them. But Georgia Tech has an opportunity this weekend to obviously make a statement and beat a team like Pitt, you know, and kind of stake that claim to another top win. The problem is, ding, 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 the College Football Playoff Committee does not have Pitt in the top 25. Now, Pitt, are they playing like a top 25 team? I would argue that they are. Since making the quarterback change, they have. And they ran into a buzzsaw. They ran into a really good Notre Dame team, and they got their tails handed to them. But 5-1 in ACC play, 7-3 overall, and a team that since making a quarterback change, you got to look back on them. I think the committee has to fix this thing. When you see teams make major changes and major shifts in their direction of their season by making a quarterback change, for example, you've got to give them more credit for doing that, even if it costs them early in the season. You have to. You know, it's why I think it's even more impressive, like what an Ole Miss is doing, what a Texas Tech has done at times. You know, not having their quarterback. You know, I think that's things that should be rewarded and talked about a little bit more. You know, it's not something that you can just go into and you know, ignore when you look at the entire resume of a team. You know, so that is all important things when you look at some of these programs. And Pitt should be a top 25 team. And so that's a problem for Georgia Tech with regards to moving up, because you can already see the narrative coming across where their quality wins, and Hunter Yurachek talked about this. Quality wins are Duke's 5-5, Clemson's 5-5, Wake Forest is 7-3. Quote, but there's some controversy on the Wake Forest game. Totally fair, but you can't take away wins either. The game was given to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech won the game. Two things could be true at once. And so you can't start looking at some of these games that are decided by the officials in a bad way and say, oh, yeah, but they should have another loss. And if they should have another loss in your mind, I think that's kind of another reason. Why don't you just throw them behind Texas then? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to just create losses or create this or create that when things that didn't happen like aren't there for you to create it, it's really confusing to me. So the College Football Playoff Committee is really, really struggling with some of the points on these teams and why they are ranked in the location that they are. Now, I think when Alabama lost to Florida State, that is still something that doesn't get talked about enough. And Alabama is not suddenly a team that, kind of changed their running game around and became this powerhouse rushing attack after that Florida State game. They were not a team that, outside of Georgia, really had to play an incredibly difficult slate to get to where they were. And then Oklahoma and that buzzsaw defense figures it out and makes them pay and makes Ty Simpson pay. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that teams are talked about throughout the season that the committee kind of backs themselves into a corner with. And I think it's impacting the ACC in a huge way. And I'll add this to one kind of final point around the ACC. And I don't really think I hit on this well, but Miami at 13, Georgia Tech 16, Virginia at 19. The ACC has an image issue with the College Football Playoff Committee. And there's no question about that. And rightfully so, when you go out and one of your teams that is hot and kind of starting to pick up momentum like a Pitt goes and plays Notre Dame and gets their tails kicked in. There are, Georgia Techs against Boston College where you're like, gosh, 1-9, Boston College taking Georgia Tech all the way to the brink of losing. Virginia, the way they've navigated their schedule until this Duke game, all of those things are perception issues for the ACC. And the ACC has to figure out a way to turn around the narrative that this league is not good. That's the biggest problem I have for the ACC right now. They've got to come up with ways to evaluate the league differently. You look at some of the players in this league and the star power, they can talk about it until they're blue in the face. And you can hit on it and say, hey, look at this team and look at this roster and blah, blah, blah. You've got to find a different way to convince the College Football Playoff Committee that number one, you have a league that produces pro players, that has rosters that are being invested in. I think it should say something about the league when Clemson, when Florida State, when some of these teams that spend and have all the resources in the world aren't the ones at the top. Like if, let's say, Alabama, or I'll give you a better example, LSU right now, look at what they are. And now they're with an interim coach. So I get it. But who's to say they obviously wouldn't have lost to maybe an Alabama without Brian Kelly? Maybe the players would have given up and they just would have lost to Arkansas. Who knows? I'm not trying to create wins here. I'm trying to say that one of the top brands in the SEC, LSU, who was predicted, and raise a hand right here, I think I had them in Atlanta. I'd have to pull up my ballot. But they have not performed. Texas has not performed. And try telling me that Texas is not the very same team that rolled out there against Ohio State and looked like the exact same team as far as the issues that it still has. And I think Arch Manning is going to be a good quarterback, but you could see it in game one that he was getting put in poor positions. The receivers are not good. They're not fast enough. They're not able to create separation. Sark is not helping Arch in terms of his play calling, and the offensive line play is abysmal. They can't move the ball. They go to Georgia, and everybody sees what the standard is there that Texas is trying to chase. And Texas has talent. Don't get me wrong. And that defense is solid too. But for Texas to be down the way it is this year, for LSU to be down the way it is this year, for A&M to be jumping up and finally putting it all together, at least for second half, Ole Miss doing what they're doing. Those are non-traditional SEC powers that are in the top 6 currently of the SEC rankings. Oklahoma, or of the College Football Playoff rankings. Oklahoma in the top 8. Alabama sitting at number 10, kind of right where they were last year. The tide, is literally shifting. And the ACC has to create the narrative, because until they can get the committee to buy in and the national media to buy in, it's going to be a narrative. The ACC has to create this narrative for themselves that they produce pro players, that they have a great league of coaches. And you look around the league, and man, there aren't many out there that you're like, oh gosh, what is going on there? It's turned over a little bit here. And you've seen schools invest, and you've seen schools go out and take what they want to get. Brent Key, one, he needs to sign an extension. That's what number one needs to happen for this league right now. But you add a James Franklin. You obviously have a Dabo Sweeney. Mike Norvell's won a bunch of games. Rhett Lashley's now won a bunch of games. Mario Cristobal's won a bunch of games, still trying to get over the hump. The coaching in this league, and then you add James Franklin in, who's going to get introduced in 30-something minutes. The coaching in this league is at a high level. Look at what Jake Dickert's done for Wake Forest. Talk about the schedule all you want, and I'm one of those people. But you got Bill Belichick. There are a lot of narratives that the ACC is leaving out on the table right now, and it's affecting them with the College Football Playoff Committee. It's really hurting them, in my opinion. The way you have to talk about your team and teams, like when you need to go ride for Miami, Georgia Tech, Virginia, you've got to do it. And Virginia is not a sexy one. Like Chandler Morris, you got to kind of push him as the guy and look at what he's done. And he's kind of playing Haynes King-ish level of pushing his team to that level that they're at right now. But Georgia Tech with Brent Key, they'll lean on you. They'll do this. They'll run up 500-something yards of offense every single game. They can't stop a nosebleed right now, but they're a physical style of team that takes on the personality of their head coach, who, by the way, without a doubt, deserves an extension. Without a doubt is going to get one from Georgia Tech that I think puts him at a high level, but would also be wanted by a Florida if Lane Kiffin doesn't go there. I think LSU should give him a call if Lane Kiffin doesn't go there. If Ole Miss opened up, they should give him a call. All of those schools should be knocking down his door, making them say no. And if you need to create a narrative around that, do it. Do it. Because that creates the perception that I think Miami has with this College Football Playoff Committee, which is why they're back up to number 13. Miami has the roster. They have a name brand coach who recruits, and it is allowing them to get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and the outrage over Notre Dame being so much farther ahead of them, despite them both having 2 losses and Miami having the head-to-head over them. But Miami has created their own perception that they have a roster that should be in the college football playoff, especially if they can win out, and they have the talent to do it, and they have the name and the history and all of those things. But man, you watch this league week in, week out, and you see some of the talent. You see some of the receivers in this league. You see some of the defensive back and secondary play. You see some of the trenches. You can talk to me about the SEC having the defensive line. I'm always going to give them that. They have a ton of talent at the defensive line position. But the ACC right now has a perception issue with how people talk about their league. And they struggle with showing up for some of these big non-conference games that they need to show up for and win. But of course, when they finally do, nobody gives them credit because it was week 1 against Alabama, right? Florida State. So there has to be a change here. And I'm sorry to get on this tangent here, kind of wrapping things up on the college football playoff rankings, but it's true. This is a perception issue for the ACC. If you really watch this league week in, week out, you'd see a level, I think, of competition that is built on NFL-style talent that is going to go on and do things in the league and have longer careers. There are a lot of talented players that come from the ACC and go on to have longer careers because they haven't been through the meat grinder of an SEC, because they haven't gone through the meat grinder of a Big Ten. So all of those things are real. The ACC has to find a way to create almost a Big 12 level of misinformation in the future and find a way to get some of the benefit of the doubt. Like, watch Georgia Tech play. Their defense is struggling right now. They're struggling. But you know what? They have an offense and they have a Heisman Trophy level quarterback that can get them to where they want to go if they take care of business. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that Georgia Tech game in a couple weeks. If Georgia Tech can beat Georgia, that is step number 1 to changing the perception of this league. I really believe it. So then you can look at other things across the league and say, see, Georgia Tech, look at look at what they can do. Look at that roster. That's the type of teams everybody has in this league. The talent, like NC State, like give them a coaching staff that is a little bit more competent on the field and in development. That roster, like if James Franklin was hired there tomorrow, I fully believe they'd be contending for the ACC championship next year. So lots of things for the ACC to do, but I can tell you this. We have a new corporate sponsor that I'm very excited to announce, and it is one that everybody coast to coast can lean on for events, and Corporate Magic is our new sponsor. Really excited to welcome them to the All Access AM family, and I can tell you what, live events have the power to bring people together. When they're well produced, they inform people, they inspire people, and they hold your attention all the way through when you walk out the door. And I think that's what Corporate Magic can do for people, is really give you an experience of a lifetime. And they specialize in making those special events happen. They're based in Dallas. They want to be a part of the ACC family even more, coast to coast. They create incredible events, from the concepts to building the show to managing every detail. They do national sales meetings, global broadcasts, streamed events, productions seen by millions across the globe that you've seen, and you just don't know that you've seen a Corporate Magic event. So for more information, visit corporatemagic.com. Big stages demand a partner who knows how to perform when the stakes are high, and you can trust them with every aspect of planning, design, and the technology to keep your audiences engaged. So appreciate Corporate Magic for jumping on board with us at All Access AM. Really excited to tell you guys more about them as the days and weeks go along. So shout out Corporate Magic for rounding out our college football playoff discussion. Let's go with the ACC Power Rankings, because I think this is important. I think this gives you a little bit of an idea of where this league is with regards to how much opportunity it has, I think, to change the perception of what they are and who they can become and all of those things. And I look at the ACC and I see a team, and I really struggled at the top this week. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But I look at this league, and I look at what they've been able to accomplish this season as far as making things competitive and making them have the storylines of some of the Cinderellas, like a UVA, for example. And now you're at the point of the season where the pecking order is so interesting now, because you have the conversation around the college football playoff now for the last few weeks. And so let me get this out of the way. I start out my power rankings with a new bottom of the barrel team, and that is Syracuse. Syracuse was off this past week, so they'll get back to action this week. They do face, I believe, they face, where is it? Notre Dame. So nice. Just another opportunity for Notre Dame to get a win over an ACC team. I think this partnership with Notre Dame probably needs to end, or something different needs to happen with it, because right now Notre Dame is just able to dish out a loss to some of these ACC teams. Syracuse this year, if they had Steve Angeli, they would beat Notre Dame. That would be a bold prediction of mine. Just kind of everything else played out the same way, minus Steve Angeli getting hurt. I would have had that one on full-blown upset type of alert. Syracuse might have been playing for a game in Charlotte, or not playing for a game in Charlotte, that matchup, but they would have been, kind of fighting for that college football playoff, right? Things like that. When I go to number 16, I move up BC. Credit due to them. They fought their tails off, and they took Georgia Tech to the brink. I think they are still fighting for Bill O'Brien. I think with that performance, maybe any sort of talk about him getting moved on from is cooled off. The problem with Bill O'Brien is he is in year 2. Number one, he's in year 2, which is certainly something to know. But also, when you look at the day and age of college football fans, they want it now, they want it tomorrow, they don't want to wait, all of those things. Bill O'Brien has to fix quarterback issue. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at Bill O'Brien and his team and how they fought for him against Georgia Tech, impressive. They move up a spot to number 16. Number 15, Stanford. Number 14, Virginia Tech. Number 13, UNC. Continuing to like what I see from them, even though they lost to Wake. I don't think that's a bad spot for them. They could have been a bottom feeder, or they were a bottom feeder about a month and a half ago. Florida State at number 12, and they looked the part. I almost put them over Duke, but Duke did lose to UVA, who looked healthy, who looked ready to roll. And so I had Duke at 11. Then NC State continues to get credit from me for what they did, even though they faced a buzzsaw in Miami. They took down Georgia Tech and looked good doing it. Number 9, Cal. They get the win over Louisville. By the way, here's what I'll say. I'm going to have Louisville above Cal. I'm violating one of the rules that, the College Football Playoff Committee should probably look at. I still think the overall body of work for Louisville leads me to believe they'll be competitive with SMU this weekend, and then that they'll beat Kentucky. That's projecting. That's hard with power rankings, but I do have Louisville as my number 8 team in the ACC Power Rankings, just over Cal. I know that sounds dumb. Cal did just beat them, but they beat them in overtime. Again, Isaac Brown, it is a huge injury. I harp on it a lot, but that is why, in part, I have them above Cal. I think they played the game again. Louisville would take care of business. Clemson, and again, but they didn't. So I'm contradicting myself when talking about the college football playoff. Clemson at number 7, like what they've done. They've figured things out. They'll get Furman this weekend. No chance that they really move up, move down, I would think, unless they play like they did against Elon earlier this year. So we'll see. Maybe Clemson closes things out without any drama and then goes and beats South Carolina, a bad South Carolina team, the final week of the regular season. So we'll see if Dabo Swinney and company can cool things down. Looking online right now, you can go to that game, Furman at Clemson. If you've never been to Clemson, great environment. Tickets as low as $15 is what I'm saying right now. So good stuff there. Wake Forest at number 6. They did take care of business against UNC. They have an opportunity to close out their I think they're finishing up their home slate with Delaware. So before going on the road at Duke next week in what'll be a game that really could cement Jake Dickert as coach of the year, I think, in the ACC. So Tony Elliott probably has that locked up, but man, the expectations were so low for Wake. Can't you? God, I don't know. It's a good conversation to have. We'll have to have it a little bit later if they do get that win over Duke. Then I've got Miami at number 5, which is interesting, of course, because the college football playoff rankings have Miami as the top team in the ACC in their rankings. And it's hard to argue with that, with their resume. Miami has taken care of the lower level ACC teams. Miami goes on the road at Virginia Tech this week, and then they finish up going on the road at Pitt. This is subject to change, but they're not, I should say, I don't expect Miami to have much of a change in their power ranking if they take care of business at Virginia Tech. Obviously, it's not going to be a game that moves them up or moves them down. For everyone's sake, in a sense, if you're an SMU fan, if you're a Georgia Tech fan looking for maybe a little bit of clarity, if you're any of these teams hanging around, you're hoping Virginia Tech saves everything up for Virginia next week in their rivalry game to close out the season, the regular season. But I've got Miami at 5. I've got SMU above them. So kind of contrary to the Louisville Cal thing, I have SMU above Miami for their win over Miami. I think SMU would beat Miami again on a neutral field. I think they would, probably lose on the road, but they would win at home again. I think the way SMU's playing, coming off the bye, they got even healthier. They're about to get one of their top pass rushers back. They are trending in the right way to make yet another push to close out this season on a great run. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I do have SMU over Miami right now. Number 3, I have UVA. I really wrestled with this, and I think the top 2 are going to piss people off. UVA, still for me, when I look at their overall body of work in the ACC and the non-conference game against Washington State, I struggle with how much they struggled. And a win is a win and all those things. But Pitt was blowing through ACC competition since making the change to Mason Heinschel. UVA was struggling through it with a healthy Chandler Morris, who's experienced, played in a bunch of football games, all those things. So I really struggle with that. So I have them at number 3. Again, I really wrestled with this top 5, Miami, SMU, UVA. Number 2, I go Georgia Tech. Here's why. I think Georgia Tech is starting to enter UVA territory as far as playing with fire. I think and obviously they got burned by NC State. But the Boston College offense doing what they did kept them out of the top spot. And I think it was so bad that if not for me thinking that Haynes King can will this team to not only a win against Pitt, but also a win over Georgia potentially, that they would be at number 3 and UVA would be at number 2. But I like Georgia Tech's overall resume better than Virginia, and I like the way they're playing on offense enough to have them at number 2. I think they're more consistent on offense. They're explosive. Of course, they have Haynes King, all of those things. I've got them at number 2 over UVA. I think eyeball test for me on that one too. The College Football Playoff Committee agrees they have them over UVA by a couple spots. And then number 1, I do have as Pitt, and people probably are going to be like, really? They got absolutely destroyed by Notre Dame. They did, but they also have a game this weekend where they can absolutely prove that either I'm right or I'm silly for having Georgia Tech at number 2, because they go on the road at Georgia Tech in a 6 p.m. Central Time game on ESPN and have a chance to keep their name in the ACC championship race, keep them firmly in the picture for being the representative for the ACC. I know it would be really hard, but if you got a win over Georgia Tech, if you got a win over Miami to close out the season, that would be pretty strong. They would be in the college football playoff. Firmly believe that. Their last 3 games of the year playing the competition that they do, they would get the credit that the committee should give them for going 2-1 in that stretch. They just obviously wouldn't be able to jump Notre Dame. That'd be silly. Head-to-head wins obviously trump everything, right? But Pitt is my number 1 team in the power rankings right now. I still think Mason Heinschel just kind of ran into a true freshman moment against Notre Dame. I don't think that Notre Dame, just had any issue handling that Pitt defense. I think Georgia Tech is going to have issues handling the Pitt offense. I would be really surprised if Mason Heinschel didn't bounce back this week. He's been playing at a super high level. Pat Narduzzi can walk into that locker room this week and say, see, guys, told you, doesn't matter. We can move on here and we can go play for an ACC championship. Everybody's going to talk trash on you this week. Fine, let them. Let's go down and get a win in Atlanta. I could see it happening. I still think that Pitt team, as far as ACC play goes, they've been playing their best football as of late for this league. And I think that's worth something when it comes to talking about them, projecting what they could be, and also giving them credit for who they are and what they've been able to put together. So I'm high on Pitt. I'm not discouraged. If I'm a Pitt fan, everything is still in front of you. You just need a little bit of help. And you can get that. You really can. And you can find yourself in Charlotte playing for an ACC championship with said help. So we'll see. They are my top team in the power rankings. To review: BC 17, Q's 16, Q's 17, BC 16, Stanford 15, Virginia Tech 14, UNC 13, FSU 12, 11, Duke 10, NC State, Cal at number 9, Louisville at number 8, Clemson at number 7, Wake at 6, Miami at 5, SMU at 4, UVA at 3, Georgia Tech at number 2, and Pitt at number 1. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Jump on our YouTube channel, All Access AM. Hit that subscribe button for me. Super easy to do. You can do it in just seconds. You can tell your friends to subscribe. You're going to see kind of my view of All Access AM here. Guess what? I'm showing you what it looks like if you're not subscribed right now to the channel, if you're not logged into your YouTube account, you can log in and click one simple button on All Access AM, and that is subscribe. It's right there. I'll have to sign in to do it, but you should already be signed in if you're watching us on YouTube. Click that subscribe button for me right there. Takes just 2 seconds to do, and we appreciate you guys who have done that as we continue to add subscribers every single day. Thanks so much for doing it. It's a lot of fun doing this show with you guys. I've got about 10 more minutes here on the show today, presented by our friends at OPW Solutions. Of course, opwsolutions.com. Make sure you reach out to them today to schedule some of your commercial maintenance that you might need for your business. We also introduced our new sponsor, Corporate Magic, corporatemagic.com. You can do incredible events, whether it be massive concerts in stadiums or national sales meetings. They can do it all. They can do it coast to coast. They can do it globally. They are that big of a brand where they can help you deliver an event that your clients, your fans, whatever people you're trying to appeal to, they can put that event together for you at a super high level. So appreciate them for their support of All Access AM. ACC basketball, really, really good group of teams here at the top of this league that are going to be battling for supremacy going into conference play. I think for me, watching Duke last night get a 78-66 win over Kansas, number 24 Kansas, so not your typical maybe top 10 matchup here, but Cam Boozer, 18 points in that game. Obviously, he continues to play well for the Blue Devils. They really need him to be the star that they expect him to be. He was 7 of 17 though from the field, was able to, still get a double-double and did it in 34 minutes. He is still playing above, I think, his overall projection, even for me. I mean, you think about a guy with his background and everything he's gone through in his life, kind of being that highly touted. For him to play the way he is early on, it's been really impressive, and he was honored by the league this week, I think, as one of either the freshman or the player of the week. So credit to him and Cam Boozer continuing to show up. Duke held a 41-33 halftime lead. They did outlast Kansas in the second half. 37-33 was the second half score to win 78-66. Kansas now 3-2 on the year. Duke 5-0. Duke continues to be the team that, for me, I really think could be a team that is better than last year's Duke team because they don't have maybe a Cooper flag. Like, they might end up developing into a better basketball team as a whole because maybe their pieces complement each other better. But I tell you what, they are going to have to wrestle this ACC crown away from teams like Louisville, from teams like UNC. I think Louisville is the best team in the conference right now. They're playing at a really high level, obviously getting that top 10 win against Kentucky. They play a tricky one at Cincinnati, just going on the road in a little kind of rivalry game there between those two teams. Cincinnati 4-0 on the year. They haven't really played many teams right now, but they're looking to kind of figure things out there with the Bearcats. But I think Louisville will take that one on Friday night, 5:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPNU if you're looking for that. Then you also have kind of a quiet weekend, but West Virginia does play at Clemson. And then Sunday, there will be just kind of a quiet weekend, but an interesting one to watch here. Virginia at Butler, 1 p.m. on CBS Sportsnet. A tricky one for UVA there. I just watched Butler play SMU. SMU was able to hold off a late push from Butler and take that win. They're going to be tricky. That is going to be one that you're going to want to see UVA take care of business against a Big East team and step up there for the league as well. When you look at the basketball kind of conference for the ACC, I think UNC is going to have to find their way without Seth Trimble for a bit. They beat North Carolina Central. They beat up on them badly. That's not surprising, but it's still a team that, I think probably, I don't want to say is dealing with some shock there from missing him, but also he was such a critical piece to what their plans were. And North Carolina ranked in the top 20 nationally. They took on Navy Tuesday night and got a win on ACC Network. So good on them taking care of business there. They do face, they're off the rest of the week, but they'll be back in action next week, of course. I think North Carolina is probably going to be unseated for a bit as Louisville kind of starts to hit their stride. I think they just came off a win against Ohio, and they'll have a chance here, I think, to make another statement on Friday night. I think they could beat up on Cincinnati pretty badly. Michael Brown Jr. was named the player of the week and rookie of the week with Cam Boozer this week for his play in that win over Kentucky. ACC players have combined for 6 of the top 10 freshman scoring outputs in the country this year. So the league is getting top talent into it. Cam Boozer's leading the way at number 1, Michael Brown in the top 5. I don't even know. Nicholas Avdalas of Virginia Tech, 33 points against Providence. Stanford, Abuka Akori has had 29 and 26 this season. So some nice talent for the league coming up through the freshman ranks. Something to keep an eye on there as league play is still a ways away, but you can kind of get familiar with these teams in non-conference. They're kind of great background noise on a weekend, maybe on a Sunday. But I think one team that is going to be one to watch here and see how they do this weekend is Virginia. I mentioned that Butler game, but UVA just disappointing kind of season last year. They're kind of, I don't want to say at a crossroads, but as they invest in football, they're going to need the basketball team to continue to try to elevate themselves. They're unranked right now. That is not really where that program is used to being. Ryan Odom running the show over there now since Tony Bennett's departure. But they're trying to find kind of a new identity, but it hasn't really clicked just yet for UVA as a whole. So I'll be watching them closely to kind of see how things go for them. They're coming off a win over Marshall. Nice, cruise past them. But 4-0 start for them. It just still seems like some of the things, at least from what I've been kind of reading about and kind of watching a little bit of UVA basketball in the corner at times, it's just not there yet to the level that they're used to. So that name brand, we talk about name brands and kind of changing some of the perception. The ACC is doing a lot of good work in basketball, changing the perception early in the year. UVA really taking it up another level would be great for the league, because they have so much to offer, but when they're not hitting, it hurts the league. Even though this league has Duke and North Carolina and NC State and some of these other programs, Virginia has just become such a mainstay of consistency over the years. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can put together. Their non-conference play includes Northwestern on Friday night. They do go at Texas, and they face Maryland in December. So they'll have a couple of chances here to make things happen. And who knows, they could look up at the end of the year and maybe find themselves undefeated going into league play. That would be something that would be a nice little feather in the cap there for Ryan Odom to kind of make the full turn here and get things going. So we'll be watching Virginia closely to kind of see if they elevate their team like we've seen an NC State do with Will Wade. Louisville take it up a notch. North Carolina clearly trying to change the perception of that program again with Caleb Wilson and what they've been able to do and reinvesting in Hubert Davis. So lots of good things to come for those programs. But look, guys, we'll have an extended show tomorrow previewing week 12 previewing week 13 for college football and the ACC. We hope you guys enjoyed this Wednesday edition, reacting to the ACC status in the college football playoff rankings. Please hit the subscribe button and, of course, support our friends OPW Solutions. Give them a call, opwsolutions.com, 214-444-2305, or you can email them, info@opwsolutions.com, for all your commercial landscaping and services needed for your business. So check them out, OPW Solutions. And of course, Corporate Magic, welcome to them, our new sponsor for the Wednesday show. shout out Corporate Magic as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of All Access AM. We'll catch you guys tomorrow back in our normal slot, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time. I'm Billy Embody. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Please hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you next time.